Hi everyone, it's Hannah from Hand Jam Crochet, and today we are making this child size granny stitch hoodie together. Now I can't quite fit it on, but you'll see we have a nice comfy cozy hood here that opens into a bit of a V-neck with our V-shape granny stitch working down with our cleverly closed sides, and then we have sleeves with a short little cuff, but you can adjust those to be how you'd like, and then a bottom band down here. The pattern comes in sizes newborn baby through to age 10, and today we're going to be making the age 3 to 4 together. And in the description below I'll put links for where you can find the pattern, the written pattern, either on my blog or as a premium PDF. To make the hoodies, I chose to use Hayfield Bonus DK yarn, which is a category 3 weight yarn. It's 100% acrylic and great for children's wearables. And we get 306 yards in 100 grams. And it comes in, I think, about 100 different colours. So it's awesome for making colourful clothes here. And then you're also going to need a 4.5mm or G+ crochet hook, or the hook that meets the gauge for you. This is one of my Sirdar hooks here. And then we'll need the basics of a pair of scissors, a needle for your ends, and then 2 stitch markers for the hoodie. Now, if you've seen any of my other patterns in this collection, I have a cardigan and a sweater, and this hoodie is a hybrid of the two of them. Basically, the construction uses elements of both, which is why it's an entirely different pattern, because it works very differently. So we begin working here back and forth in rows that aren't joined to give us that change of the neckline, and then we will join when we get to this point, and we will work in rounds, and then we work our way down to create this yoke, this V shape here, and then we join for the sleeves, create the body section, and then add the sleeves and the hood on afterwards. So once you've decided on the size that you're going to make, you'll see in the written pattern that the yoke, so the top section where the head hole and the neckline is, are written very differently and almost completely separately. And that's because they work in different ways and increase at different points, but the principles of the increases are exactly the same for all the sizes, which, long story short, basically means I just need to show you how to do one, and then the rest of them will make sense. So for our 3 to 4 size, we are going to begin by putting a slip knot on the hook, and then we are going to chain 64. So make sure if you're making a different size that you check the amount of chains that you're going to need to make for the size that you're making. Now we have our 64 chains for this 3 to 4 size. We are ready to start working back along this chain that we have made. And so in the back bumps, so swivel your work over to find the back bumps, we are going to work a stacked double crochet in this second chain from the hook. Now, a stacked double crochet means you get a lovely, neat, crisp edge to your work. So I'd encourage you to have a go at these. We're going to work a single crochet to begin with, and then we are going to literally stack another one on top of that. So this sidebar of the stitch that we have here, I'm going to put another single crochet into there. So that's a stacked double crochet. Then we need to put another double crochet in the next chain, and a double crochet into the next chain. Then we're ready to chain one, and then we're going to skip the next chain, and then we're going to double crochet into the next 3 chains. Then we're ready to chain one and then skip one. And we just carry on repeating this up until we run out of chains. So working 3 double crochet after your chain 1. So work all the way along, and we should finish with a set of 3 double crochet in these last 3 chains here. So get to that point and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so here I am at the end of row 1, and I haven't yarned over and completed that last stitch, because if you are using the same colour for the next row, then absolutely go for it, finish that stitch and we will turn for the next row. But I am going to change my colour here, so before I complete that last stitch there, I'm going to break my yarn rather noisily, sorry, and then get my next colour, which is here, ready. And I am going to yarn over and complete the stitch with that new colour, and then we are ready to turn and work row 2. Now row 2 for this size includes what we call a shoulder increase in the pattern. Now this means that we obviously have just a straight line at the moment, but we want to have a V and increase at the front and the back of the hoodie, but then also, so it's going to bend like this. We are also then going to put some increases in the sides where the shoulders are going to be. Now different sizes may or may not have a shoulder increase at this point, but at some point during the pattern every size needs a shoulder increase. So the principle of this row will I will show you the principle of it basically, and then you will be able to apply it for wherever you see in the pattern a shoulder increase. So we are going to begin by working straight into this first stitch. We're going to put a stacked double crochet in there, so that's single crochet and then another single crochet right on top of it, and then into that same stitch we are going to put another 2 double crochet, and this is going to count as one of our granny clusters. So throughout the pattern now we are classing any 3 double crochet stitches together. So these 3 double crochet stitches, any of these, as granny clusters. So basically anything that's separated by a chain 1 space, this set of stitches is 3 double crochet. And then also, as you'll see in this shoulder increase round, we class 2 double crochet as a granny cluster as well. And we'll talk about that when we get to them. So we've done our first granny cluster there, and then we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next granny cluster, which is that first one that we have here, and then we're going for that first chain 1 space here, and we're going to make a granny cluster in there. So we're going to put 3 double crochet into that chain 1 space. So this is now our classic granny stitch that we're beginning here. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to skip the next granny cluster and work into the next chain 1 space. And we need to do that 3 times. So this is our second one that we're doing. Then we chain 1, we skip these 3, and then we work into the next chain 1 space. Then we chain 1, and we've got to the point where we're now working our shoulder increase. And our shoulder increase includes, in this chain 1 space, working 2 double crochet, a chain 1, and then another 2 double crochet, all into that chain 1 space there. So that becomes our shoulder increase, and what these are now are 2 granny clusters. So a 2 double crochet together, and 2 double crochet together there, separated by a chain 1 space. So that's a granny cluster there and a granny cluster there. So we're increasing the amount that we have. We're now going to chain 1, and then we're going to copy what we've done here, 1, 2, and 3 granny clusters, traditional ones, into the next 3 chain spaces. So now we've done those 3 granny clusters, we are ready at this midpoint here to work our point. So we're going to work 3 double crochet here for a granny cluster, then chain 2, and then work another 3 double crochet into that space. So this chain 1 space here gets 2 granny clusters, but 2 granny clusters separated by a chain 2. So that will now start making a nice point for us. So now on this other side, we need to mirror what we've done here. So we're going to work 1, 2, 3 granny clusters, a shoulder increase, and then 1, 2, 3 granny clusters. And then in our very last stitch, we're going to work a final granny cluster. So let's work away and chain 1. and then 3 sets of 3 double crochet, separated by that chain 1. Now here we are ready to do our shoulder increase here. So we have 2 double crochet, a chain 1 and 2 double crochet. Then we're ready to chain 1 and then work 1, 2 and 3. So a 3 double crochet granny cluster in each of those. Now here at the end we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip these 2 stitches, and then in this last stitch we're going to put a 3 double crochet granny cluster there. And now I'm not going to change colour here, so I'm going to complete that stitch there, and then we are going to turn and we're ready to work row 3. Now row 3 for this size that I'm making is another shoulder increase. So we're going to work exactly what we did in the last one by working 3 double crochet in this first stitch and then 3 double crochet in each of the chain 1 spaces up until we get to this shoulder increase, and then we'll work another shoulder increase of 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet in that chain 1 there. And then we carry on as normal, working our 3 double crochet granny clusters in these chain 1 spaces. And then at every time we get to this chain 2 space, we are going to work another point. So we're going to carry on increasing there to make it get longer and pointier, if for want of a better way of saying it. And then we mirror the same on this side. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 granny clusters, then a shoulder increase, then 1, 2, 3, 4 granny clusters, and then a chain 1, and then in that final stitch you'll work 3 double crochet. Now this is only true for some of the sizes on this row 3, so just check the size that you're making. If you are already ready to do a regular row, then all a regular row is the fact that we work 3 double crochets into the chain 1 spaces. You don't ever work then a shoulder increase. You just would work a 3 double crochet into there. But all of the sizes, all of the rows have this at the point of it. It's just whether or not you add a shoulder increase at these 2 sides here or not. So now carry on working your rows for the size that you're making with or without the shoulder increases as it tells you to. For me, I need to do one more row because then I get to the final row, row 4, before it tells me to break the yarn, because then we are going to transfer from working in rows into rounds. So get to that point for the size that you're making and then meet me back here and we'll work that final row together. So here I am having completed row 3 for my size, and now row 4 you will see in the pattern, well for my size anyway, the row before you need to break your yarn just ends slightly differently. So for me I need to do for row 4 another shoulder increase. You may or may not have to for your size. So I'm going to work along, do a shoulder increase here, then work a point here, a shoulder increase here, and then work as I would and have been up until the end here, and then at the end I'm going to chain 2 and slip stitch into the first stitch to join. So I'll work away on this row because it's exactly the same as the previous one that I've done, and then meet me back here and I'll show you what we do with this chain 2 and joining. Now at the end of this row I am ready to chain 2 as it tells me in the pattern, and then I'm going to find the beginning of my row and I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch here. And that is going to join us into a round rather than rows now. And this is what will create this. This will now be the front of the hoodie, and this will create this nice V-neck that we have. Now you can join yours wherever you like. You can have this as deep as you like, because then your ribbing for the neckline will come as far down as here. So decide where you would like yours, but when you are ready to join in that method. And then what we're going to need to do is, regardless if you're carrying in the same color or not, you're going to break your yarn, because this is now the front. I just find it much nicer and neater if we then have the joins for the rest of the round here at the back. So this is now going to be the front of our hoodie, and this will be the back of it. So what we're now going to do is work in turned rounds. So I need to flip over so that I'm ready with the wrong side of these stitches facing me to join here in this chain 2 space at the back for the start of the next round. So joining here, I'm just going to chain 1 to get myself going, and then in this chain 2 space I'm going to do just as we have done before. We're going to work 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet to get us having that point there at what's going to be the back of the hoodie. And then for the size that I'm making, this is a regular round. So I'm going to work into each of these chain 1 spaces, including this chain 1 between the shoulders clusters here. I'm going to work 3 double crochet all the way around until I get to this chain 2 space here. Now I've arrived at this chain 2 that we have here that joins the front, and into that chain 2 I'm now going to work another V, so 3 double crochet with a chain 2 following them. This bit feels really odd, but I promise it works and sorts itself out. So 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then 3 double crochet all into that chain 2 space that we have there. Oops. And that will allow us to increase the length of the hoodie down there at the front. And then we're going to chain 1, and then this other side we're going to match exactly what we did on that side and work 3 double crochet into each of these chain 1 spaces all the way around. And then when we get back to here, we're going to slip stitch in the first stitch to join. Now just bear in mind, I will keep saying that whichever size you're making, just keep an eye out for which rounds you are working shoulder increases or not working shoulder increases for, because it's completely different for the different sizes. Now I've slip stitched into that first stitch to join, and we're going to break my yarn, but only because I'm changing colour at this point. If you're not changing colour, what you'll need to do is slip stitch through to the chain 2 space here and then turn, because we're going to work in turned rounds now. But I'm changing my yarn colour, so I've turned over and I'm going to join to this chain 2 space my new colour here. And then just as I did before, I'll chain 1 and I'll begin with a stacked double crochet, and then 2 double crochet, a chain 2, and then 3 double crochet, all in that chain 2 space there. And then you'll need to check in the pattern for your size whether you're working a shoulder increase or a regular increase round, and we just go all the way around, then putting into this chain 2 space here at the front another V, another increase there, and then work all the way around and slip stitch to join. So that's all you need to know for the yoke now. We're either going to be working rounds of shoulder increases or regular increases, and you can change colour whichever point you like. You just need to remember to turn your rounds after each round. And then, so for my size that I'm making, I'm just checking here, I need to work up until round 14. So I will go ahead and do that now. You get to that point where it says move to split for sleeve section, and then I'll meet you back here and I'll show you how we portion off with the stitch markers for where our sleeves are going to go, and then how we close the sides of the body. So here we have the yoke, the back of and the front of that yoke, and I've got to this 3 to 4 size at the point that it says to split for sleeves. And now I have slip stitched into the chain 2 and I have already turned. And at this point we need to now grab our stitch markers and put our stitch markers at various points around this yoke to decide where the sleeves are going to go. That's all detailed in the pattern, and in the premium PDF there are also diagrams of where to put them for every size. So for this, obviously it will be different for different sizes, but for the 3 to 4 that we're making here, it tells us that we're going to start counting from this chain 2 space, and we are going to skip 8 for this size, 8 chain 1 spaces. Sorry, there's so many numbers in my head. Skip 8 1 chain spaces from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, and then we need to put a stitch marker in the next chain 1 space. So that goes in there, and now it tells us we need to skip the next 8 chain 1 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, and then this same stitch marker, pardon me, is going to join to this chain 1 space here. So we're going to fold over and connect it to this one here. Easier said than done, underneath and upside down, trying to show you. There we go. And that should leave us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 chain 1 spaces before we get to this chain 2 space at the back here. And the important thing to know is that all of the sizes, the sides here should have an equal number of chain 1 spaces, but your armhole may well have a different number of chain 1 spaces. This one just happens to be 8, 8 and 8. So don't worry if your numbers aren't equal for the body part and the armhole part, but just check in the pattern to make sure you follow precisely as it needs to be. And then we need to do the same on the other side. So counting from a chain 2 space, it doesn't matter which one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And then we put the stitch marker in the next one. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we join it to this one. Now this has set us up ready to do the next round for the sleeves. Now I'm carrying on in this same colour, so I'm here ready to go. So to begin round 1 for the split for the sleeves, we are going to untangle ourselves and then work our normal increase here for this point. So we have 3 double crochet, chain 2 and 3 double crochet into that chain 2 space, because at the moment we're still adding length here. Then we're going to chain 1, skip the next granny cluster just as we've been doing, and then work 3 double crochet into this chain 1 space. Chain 1, and then we carry on repeating that, working a 3 double crochet granny cluster into each of the chain 1 spaces to the last but 1 chain space before the stitch marker. So it's going to be, this is the last one and this is the last but 1. So work up until there, and then I'll show you what we do underneath the arm. So here we are at that chain 1 space, and I'm going to chain 1, and then in this last chain 1 space before the stitch marker I'm going to work 3 double crochet, but after that I am not going to chain 1 as we would normally, because we're going to start decreasing here underneath the armpits. And the way that we do that is the 2 chain 1 spaces that are joined by this stitch marker are now going to have a double crochet 2 together in them. So we are going to begin a regular double crochet, but we're not going to yarn over and complete it. We're going to then twist the stitch marker out of the way, otherwise I'll get it caught, yarn over and begin a second double crochet in that second chain 1 space that's joined we yarn over and pull through 2, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3. And now if I take the stitch marker out, we've got a double crochet 2 together, joining those 2 chain 1 spaces together. So this chain 1 space and this chain 1 space are now joined together with this double crochet 2 together. And then we are ready to work along the other side. We're going to not chain 1 here because we're decreasing under the arm, and we're going to work into the next chain 1 space 3 double crochet. And then we just continue with our chain 1 and then our granny clusters, the 3 double crochet in each of these chain 1 spaces till we get to the chain 2. And then we're going to do our increase there at the bottom. And then the other side is going to mirror what we've just done basically. And you're going to work a double crochet 2 together over these 2 chain 1 spaces that are joined by this stitch marker. And then when you get back to the beginning, you're going to slip stitch in the first stitch to join, and that will be that round 1 complete. And then we will have 2 armholes, and we'll have a body section that is beginning to evolve. Obviously this is the opposite, it's upside down at the moment. Now after this round, for this size, the 3 to 4 and indeed the 7 to 8 size, we are then ready to go over to the flattened bottom and close the sides. But all of the other sizes have another round very similar to this one for round 2 of this section. So make sure you watch out for whichever size you're making, but I'll complete this round and then we'll be able to flatten the bottom and close the sides together. Okay, so I've completed that round and I've slip stitched to join, and now I'm going to slip stitch through to that chain 2 space to carry on with this colour, and then turn. Oh, banged the camera, sorry everyone. Now the important thing to know now is that I'm now ready to flatten the bottom and close the side. So we're going to basically be putting in these triangles here, but we're going to be doing them one at a time. So this side I'm going to be putting in because we're going to be doing in turned rows, and then we will put this side in to do in turned rows again. So a bit like we did at the beginning, we're going to be now working in rows instead of rounds. And the important thing here is that if you're doing lots and lots of different colours here and using scraps of yarn, I would recommend doing one row of this side and then a matching row of this side, so that you know you've definitely got enough yarn in your stash to create the sides equally. And as we work them, that will make more and more sense, I hope. So the actual principles are really similar to what we've been doing. We just change the beginning and the end of the row slightly, and we continue to decrease under the arm here just to close this section. So first off, we are going to work a stacked double crochet in this chain 2 space. And that's all we're going to be doing in that chain 2 space. We're not even going to chain 1 because what we want it to do is, rather than stand like that, we want it to be flat and create the bottom edge of our sweater or hoodie, sorry. And so then without chaining 1, we're going to work into this chain 1 space, a granny cluster. So our 3 double crochet go here. And then we are ready to, off we go, chain 1 and then 3 double crochet in each of these up until we get to this chain 1 space, so the one before the last chain 1 space before this join here. So this chain 1 space here, and then we have 1 left before we get to that double crochet 2 together, or your double crochet if you're making a different size to me, that may be a double crochet instead of a double crochet 2 together. Here we are, I've chained 1 and now I'm going to work a granny cluster in this last chain 1 space before the underarm, and then here we are just going to not chain 1 and we are going to work into that double crochet 2 together, or double crochet depending on which size you're making. You're going to work a double crochet stitch and that will pull in that underarm for you. Then you're going to skip the next granny cluster and work a granny cluster in the next chain 1 space here. Then we chain 1 and then off we go along this side until we get to this chain 2 space. So work into this chain 1 space, a granny cluster into there, and then don't chain 1, because then I'll show you what we do here at this chain 2 space. So this is me in the last chain 1 space there, and I've done my 3 double crochet. I'm not going to chain 1, and then into that chain 2 space I'm just going to put a double crochet stitch, and that is what will flatten the bottom there on that side. And then we've completed that row. We are going to turn, and you're going to continue working exactly the same row that we have just done. The only difference being now, of course, you have a double crochet here to work into, so you'll work a stacked double crochet there into that one, whereas before we were working into the chain 2. So just work a stacked double crochet there, and then off you go. You're ready to work into your chain 1 space, and then decrease underneath the arm just as we did on the previous row, and then work just a double crochet into that last stitch of the row. And you continue repeating that row then until the last 2 rows of this closing section, which will be at the point that we have 4 granny clusters. So 1, 2 on this side, 1, 2 on that side, and then 1 double crochet at the beginning, 1 double crochet in the middle, and 1 double crochet at the end. So 4 granny clusters and 3 double crochet stitches. Get to that point, and then meet me back here and I'll show you how to do the last 2 rows of this. Right, so now I have 1, 2 and 3 double crochet, and then 1, 2, 3 and 4 granny clusters left. And the last 2 rows to close the side are the same for all of the sizes. We are going to start as we always have been, and we're going to work a stacked double crochet here in that first stitch. Then we are going to skip this granny cluster and work 3 double crochet, so another granny cluster in the chain 1 space. And then we're already at the underarm decrease, so we're not chaining 1 there. We're just going to go straight into that double crochet and put a double crochet there. Then we're going to go into this chain 1 space, work 3 double crochet here, so another granny cluster, and then we're already at the end, so we skip the last one and then we go into the last stitch here with a double crochet, and then that gives us 3 double crochet and 2 granny clusters. Turn for our final row here, and we're going to work a stacked double crochet here in that first stitch. Then skip this granny cluster and work a double crochet here into that middle double crochet, skip the granny cluster, and then a double crochet in the very last stitch. And that completes that side, and we can break our yarn. And then the next job, if you haven't been doing the row by row, as I've been saying, as I suggested with the different colours, we then close in this side. The only thing that we need to make sure that we do is make sure that you start with the stitches, the wrong side of the stitches facing you. So I would need to join to this chain 2 space here to begin, because these are the wrong sides of the stitches and I want to work in turned rows. So you'll work exactly the same as you did for this side, but just make sure that you join at the right place so that your stitches are facing the right way. So go ahead and close that side, and then if you want to put a bottom band on and you want to use the same colour yarn that you are using here for this bottom section, then don't break your yarn at the end of that and meet me back here and we will start the bottom band. So now I have closed both of these sides. We have a completely flat bottom that's nice and level, and we are ready, if you'd like to add the bottom band. Now, of course, you don't have to add it if you don't want to, but I have written it within the pattern. I'm going to carry on with this yarn that I have here, and I'm going to chain 7, but of course you can make it any length that you would like it to be. And we're going to work back into these chains here. So the second chain from the hook, and each along will get a single crochet in it. So into the back bumps, I'm going into that second chain from the hook, and then each along. So I've done 7 chains, and then that will give us 6 stitches. But as I say, you can make yours as long or as short as you like. just bearing in mind that then that will obviously alter the length of the entire garment. So there we have our 6 stitches, and I'm going to slip stitch into that next stitch of the bottom of the hoodie, and I'm going to turn. So for row 2 of this bottom band, we are going to be working yarn over slip stitches into the back loops of these stitches here. So we yarn over, pop our hook into the back loop, yarn over and pull through everything. We yarn over, go into the back loop, yarn over and pull through everything. Now as you'll see, I'm twisting my work as I pull the yarn through on that last yarn over, because I find it works, she says, that's typical, isn't it? It works so much better than trying to pull it from the front. So if you work here, yarn over and pull through, and try and pull through from this direction, there's very little space. Whereas if you yarn over and then once you're through, twist and pull through, I find it works much easier, and you get less of a tightness to your band. And that gives us this beautifully ridged look here. And then the next row, we're going to chain 1, trying to get this out of the way so you can see better. And then in the back loop only, we're going to work a single crochet. So a single crochet for each of these. So your single crochets will always be on the right side of your work, and your yarn over slip stitches will be on the wrong side of your work. Now we slip stitched in 1 before, but this time we're going to slip stitch in the side in 2. So we have, along this side, we have stacked double crochets or double crochet stitches, and so for each of those I assign 2 slip stitches. So 1 and then 2. And then we just carry on working our yarn over slip stitch in the back loop only of each of them. Then on the next row, we're going to chain 1 and single crochet in the back loop of each stitch. Then you'll be ready to slip stitch into the side of the next stitch of the bottom of the hoodie. Now this is really nice and variable though, because what it does, this rib is cinches in just ever so slightly. So if you don't want yours pulled in as much as mine are, then you don't need to slip stitch in 2 each time. You can just add the odd 1 instead. But if you want it nice and tight, then you can do it even tighter. You could slip stitch into 3. You can just experiment. Lots of my testers did lots of experimenting to see how they liked the rib to sit. But of course you don't have to add this rib if you don't want to either. You can work it exactly as you would like it to be. So then work away at this rib if you're adding it, and then meet me back here when you get joined to here, this last stitch here, and I'll show you how we seam this together. So I've just completed the last row of this bottom rib, and I've slip stitched into the bottom of the hoodie to join. And now what we need to do is we need to join these 6 stitches to these 6 stitches to complete the thing. Now, seeing as we have a loop on our hook, let's use our crochet hook to do it, but you can of course sew them together if you would like to. But the way that I do it, I'm just going to put my hook there into that first one, and then make sure I'm going to count backwards from the first one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, because sometimes it's easy to miss this last one here. So scoop that up and grab it ready to join, and then just join those 2 with a slip stitch there, and then continue for the rest of those 6 stitches, or however many you've chosen to do for your bottom rib, and join them all. There we have it. So now you can break your yarn and that is the bottom rib complete. If we turn it to the front, we can see that we are getting somewhere. And next up, we can join the sleeves, and then after that we will put the hood on and the neckband to finish. In the written pattern, we have then the entire long sleeve written out with decreases as per the Craft Yarn Council sizing guide. But the great thing to know about this sleeve is it's really straightforward. There is a regular round, there is a decrease round, and you can work those wherever you would like. You can stop wherever you would like. You can add a cuff or not add a cuff. You can work them however you would like. Just so you know though, the pattern includes a full sleeve like this one written out for you. But for this one, I am going to keep the sleeves really tiny. They're going to be almost sleeveless. But what I will show you is how we begin the sleeve, how we do a regular round, and then also how we do a decrease round. So then you'll have all of the tools that you need to decide how long you want your sleeves to be and how to work them for the style that you're making. Now, the first thing we need to do is decide which way round our stitches are. So I can see on this round, and they'll be different for different sizes, I can see here that I have the back of the stitches facing me. And because we're working in turned round or rows, that's what I need. So I'm going to turn over here because what we need is to find the chain one space after the chain one that's joined for the underarm. So this one is joined and being used for the underarm, and I want to join into the next chain one space along, which is here. So it's the one that doesn't have anything in it. And then similarly, when you're working the next sleeve, you're going to have the wrong side. So this will be then the front of your work. We are going to join and start working our sleeve here. So we've got the wrong side of our stitches, and that's the chain one space after the underarm join. So I'm going to join on this side again. We have this chain one space here. And as I say, I'll show you this first setup round, which doesn't have any decreases, and then I will show you a decrease round, and then you can just go for it and make your sleeves however you like. So we begin them by working a stacked double crochet. There's nothing new or exciting here. A stacked double crochet and then 2 double crochet in there. We chain one, and then we're going to work 3 double crochet, so a granny cluster, and then followed by a chain one, into each of the chain one spaces around. So just like that, 3 double crochet and a chain one. So that happens in each of these chain one spaces around the armhole until we get to this chain one here, because then the next one is joined on the underarm. So work until we get to that very last empty chain one space. So now we've arrived, that's that last empty chain one space. And now we have the chain one space that is joined on the underarm. We have the double crochet 2 together, and then we have the next chain one space that's joined on the underarm. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a granny cluster over the 3 of those. So we're going to put a double crochet in this chain one here that's joined for the underarm. We're going to put the next double crochet in the double crochet 2 together, which is under here, and then another double crochet in the other chain one space that's joined for the underarm. So we have then 3 double crochet that are spread apart there, but that then becomes a granny cluster. And this is the first round for all sizes. This is how we work the underarm here. Then we're going to chain one, and then we're going to join to the first stitch of that round. And then we're going to work in turned round. So we turn our work. So then once you have turned, you are ready into this chain one space. We're going to slip stitch in there. And then this chain one space and all around, if you're going to do a regular round, you're just going to work a granny cluster followed by a chain one, and then a granny cluster in the next chain one, etc, 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 all the way around. And that will be a regular round that keeps your stitch count the same. But if you are ready to do a decrease round, which are at various points in the pattern, the way that we do that is that we work a stacked double crochet in the first chain one space, And then we are going to begin a double crochet, because we're actually going to do a double crochet 2 together in there, so don't complete that stitch, and then you skip your granny cluster, and in the next chain 1 space we complete that double crochet 2 together. So yarn over and pull through all 3 there, and then we work another double crochet in that second chain, and that is our decrease cluster, I've called it for this. And then we chain 1, and then the rest of the round is exactly the same. We're going to work 3 double crochets, so a granny cluster into each of the chain 1 spaces around, separated by a chain 1. And that's all there is to it for the sleeve. You continue doing that. If you want to follow the how I've graded the written pattern, then go for it. But you can add rounds, you can decrease more, decrease less, you can flare them out, you can do whatever you like. And then you can add a similar cuff. I did 4 stitches for mine onto the bottom of your sleeve when you're happy that they're the right length. But I think what I'm going to do for this version is actually just do the 1 round of granny clusters here, and then I will do a short cuff here for both of these arms. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You put your sleeves on as you would like them, and then meet me back here and we will put the hood on together. So last but not least, we are ready. Now we've done whatever version of sleeves that you would like to do, we're ready to add the hood. Now the hood works around in rows, turned rows, around the edge of this neckline here. And then we get to a point where it's tall enough, and you can adjust that as you like, that we then start decreasing on one side, and then we break our yarn, we decrease on the other side, and then we join the top together. In fact, I've just thought I have one part in progress here that I can show you. So we work back and forth in these rows up until we get to a certain point, as it says in the pattern, or say as high as you would like it. And then we create these segments here that decreases here and here. It's all tangled up somehow. There we go. And then what we do is we fold this together, and we seam along here and along here, and that creates the shape of the hood. So to start off then, we are going to join to this very first stitch. Now bear in mind, these will be the foundation chains that you began the whole thing with, because we went from the top down, didn't we? And now we're going here upwards. So we're going to join our yarn here in the first stitch, and I'm just going to chain 1, and then we'll work a stacked double crochet in that stitch there. And then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, so of that granny cluster, and then in the chain 1 space we are going to work a granny cluster in there. We're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the granny cluster, and then we're going to work a granny cluster in the next chain 1 space. And that gets repeated across until the last chain 1 space. So go for it, and I will meet you there. Here we are in that last chain 1 space, and then we're going to skip 2 stitches and then pop a double crochet into that last stitch there. Now we're ready to turn to work row 2 of this hood. And to begin with, we are going to work a granny cluster into this first stitch that we have here. So we're going to work a stacked double crochet and then 2 double crochet all into that first stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next cluster and then work a cluster into the chain 1 space. So now we repeat that all the way across until we get to this last chain 1 space here. Now there in that last chain 1 space, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to skip this granny cluster, and then in the last stitch, this last double crochet, we are going to make a new granny cluster. So that will be 3 double crochet there into that last stitch. And that then is row 2 complete. So we're now going to turn, because what we now need to do is repeat rows 1 and 2 for the amount of rows that it tells you in the pattern, or for as high as you would like your hood to be, bearing in mind that we have a few rows to work. Let me just have a look and check how many. We've then got 6 rows per size to add. So figure out how high you would like your hood to be. And for me, for this size, I'm going to follow the pattern and it tells me I have to work up until row 14. So I'll do that. You get to where you are ready to then start decreasing and shaping the top of the hood, and then meet me back and we'll work it together. Now I'm at the point where I'm ready to do the first side decrease section. So it's going to work along half of the hood, and then we'll go back and forth in rows, and then we'll do the other decrease section on this side. And the first row of this starts the same as we have been doing here. We are going to work a stacked double crochet in this first stitch here. Then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and do a granny cluster into that chain 1 space. And we chain 1, and then we granny cluster into the next chain 1 space. And we're going to do that 5 times. So get yourself 5 granny clusters for this size. Other sizes will be different. So there we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Then we're going to chain 1, and then over the next 2 chain 1 spaces we're going to do a cluster decrease over these 2. So we've done these at various points before, but just as a reminder, we're going to double crochet in that first chain 1 space. Then we are going to double crochet 2 together over that chain space and the next chain space, and then we double crochet into that second chain space there, and that decreases over that, and you're going to see it start to angle in this direction. So then we turn, and row 2 we begin with a stacked double crochet in the first stitch. Then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, which are from the decrease cluster from this previous row, and then we are going to granny cluster in the next chain 1 space, so no chain 1 in between those there. Then we're going to chain 1, and then the rest of the row is as it has been up until the end there, working a granny cluster into that last stitch. So granny cluster into each of the chain 1 spaces, and then 3 double crochet into that last stitch there. So there we are, that's the end of row 2. And now we're ready to turn for row 3. And that begins as we have been, with a stacked double crochet in this first stitch there. Then we skip these 2 and work a granny cluster into this chain 1 space. Then we chain 1 and we start working our granny clusters. And then we work those to the second to last chain 1 space. So it will be this chain 1 here, because then we'll have one left there, and then we will decrease over the end of the row again. So a granny cluster in each of these. And then here we are, we've got this last chain 1 space, and we're going to work a cluster decrease over this chain 1 space and the last double crochet here. So that looks like this. We go 1 double crochet in there, then we have a double crochet 2 together in that chain 1 space and that last stitch there, that last double crochet, and then a double crochet in the last stitch too. So that decreases again. And now row 4 we're going to work is a repeat of row 2. Row 5 will be a repeat of row 3, and then row 6 will be a repeat of row 2. So we just carry on working those up until we get to row 6. So if you go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll work the other side together. Now once we've completed those 6 rows, we can break this yarn because we need to rejoin it to work the other side of this decrease section, and it's nice and simple to find out where it's going to be. So that's that first decrease side. We're actually going to join it into this same chain 1 space in the center that this cluster decrease is joined to. So we're going to join there, and basically we're going to now work across in this direction with our decreases being at the beginning of the row here, as opposed to the end of the row as we did them here. So we're going to do a mirror image of what we've just done. So we begin by decreasing, and then we have a straight edge here on this side. So to do that, we are going to join our yarn here in this chain 1 space, and we're going to work a decrease cluster over this chain 1 space and the next one. So we work that stack stitch, then a double crochet 2 together over that one and the next, and then a double crochet in the next one, and that's our first decrease there already. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to start working our granny clusters across. And then here we are in the last chain 1 space, and then we're just going to put a double crochet in this last stitch there, and that's the end of row 1. And then we turn, and then for row 2 we're going to begin in the same way that we have been to keep this edge straight. So a stacked double crochet and then 2 double crochet in that very first stitch, chain 1, we skip this granny cluster, and then we start working in this one. Whoops, try that again. And we continue with these granny clusters until we get to the last chain 1 space. Now here we are in that last chain 1 space there, and then we've got this decrease cluster, and we're going to skip the first 2 stitches of that and then work a double crochet in the last stitch. So that's row 2 complete. And then row 3, you've probably guessed it, it gets a cluster decrease at the beginning of this row. So we begin here with a stacked, oops. So you've probably guessed it, for this row, on row 3, we're going to work a cluster decrease over this first stitch and the next chain 1 space. So this stitch we then begin our double crochet 2 together, and then we work the next part of the double crochet 2 together in the chain 1 space there, and then we finish that granny cluster with another double crochet in there. So that's our decrease for this section, and then the rest of the row is as it always has been. And then we just need to then repeat those for rows 4, 5 and 6. So row 4 will be a repeat of row 2, row 5 will be a repeat of row 3, and row 6 will be a repeat of row 2. And so when you've done that, we can then break the yarn, ready to sew the hood together. Now you can crochet this seam together, of course, but coming from someone who loves to crochet seams together, I found that it worked better if we sew this one. So I have, this is the inside of the hood, so that the seam will be on the inside, and I think I will begin here at this end, and I'm just going to match stitches for stitches here. So whichever method you prefer, you can, as I say, crochet them together, you can whip stitch them together, you can do a back stitch, a running stitch, you can do whatever you like to seam them together. As long as it's neat and tidy across the top, it really doesn't matter. So this part is really easy because you can see how the stitches line up with each other. But when you come down to the shaping of it, we then have the sides and edges of stitches, and you just need to be super careful to make sure that they line up as you sew them together. So now we've completed the hood and seamed together the top, we just need to work the neckband that goes around the whole of the edge of this neckline. Right, so to start the neckband, we are going to need to be joining to this chain 2 space that we have here. So this chain 2 space already has these 3 double crochet, chain 2 and 3 double crochet in them. And what we want to do is create a chain that goes across and loops from one side to the other. So I'm going to turn it around so I can look at the back of the stitches here. There they are. And I'm going to join to here. And then I'm going to chain 4. Then I'm going to work over the top of this granny cluster and this granny cluster, and then slip stitch in here, and then I'm ready to turn, and then I can start working into these chains here to work my 4 single crochet that are going to begin my neckband. Now don't worry at the moment about the fact that they are not attached to here. We will sort that out in a little bit. And then what we're going to be doing is slip stitching across here so that we can join into the side of the hoodie here. So we're going to slip stitch in 2, so 1 and 2, and then we turn and we're ready. This is very difficult with so much to try and turn. It was much easier on my lap. So we yarn over, and just as we did with the other ribbings, we do a yarn over slip stitch in the back loop only. And then we turn, and then we're ready to chain 1, and then a single crochet in the back loop only. Of those 4, and then we find our side of our next stitch, and we're going to slip stitch in the next 2 of the side of that stitch, and then we turn and we keep going. So it's our yarn over slip stitches now in the back loop only. And that's pretty much all there is to it, to the neckband. We keep working our way all the way around until we get back to the start here. Let me show you. Until we get back to this point here, and then what we're going to be doing is slip stitching into the sides for it to join to the first 4 rows. So what we have just worked here, so there'll be 1, 2, 3 and 4, and this bit here will join, it will come around here and it will join to there. So if you work your way around and then meet me back here and I'll show you how to join that together. Okie dokie, so here we are. I have slip stitched and joined into that very last one, and now I'm just going to, as I said before, we're going to just slip stitch and join these 4 stitches now to the ends of the rows of the first 4 rows that we did. That was a long-winded way of saying that, wasn't it? So 1 and then 2, 3 will come here, and then 4. And obviously if you've decided to do more along there, then you just slip stitch and join however many you have, and then we can break the yarn but leave just enough that you can then weave in this end and then also attach this bit here, this collar bit here, to the base of these stitches so that there isn't that little hole. So I'm going to weave in my end here. Let's pull through that end there. Here we go, and then I'm just going to slip to the back of these stitches here. So this is the inside of the hoodie here, just to secure those in these stitches here, which you then won't see from the front, and that just will close that gap there for you. But you just figure out your way of doing it. You can have it however you would like it, and then that's all seamed and shut tight there. So the rest of it is just to weave in your ends, of course, and block it lightly. Obviously it's very difficult to block the hood. You may have to block the hood separately, flat like this, and then you'll have to do the body section flat like this before or after, whichever way round you would like to do it. So I really hope that you've enjoyed making this fun little project with me. There's links in the description below for the cardigan version, the sweater version, and for where you can find the written pattern for everything, and the yarn I used. Everything is in the description below, so make sure you pop there. If you make one of these hoodies, I would absolutely love to see it, so do come and find me on social media. My links are all in the description below. Come and find me, post your project, and I will see you again soon.